Welcome to a video where I'm gonna play and explore one of my favorite violet pigments, and that's the PV16. It's a manganese ammonium pyrophosphate, and I have three examples here. All three contain PV16. I have the Winsor & Newton. This is called permanent mauve, but on the tube it says PV16, and this is a very granulating, beautiful red violet color. Also, then I have from Senelia, they call theirs red violet. The tube says PV16. This one is slightly bluer, also has a little bit of a texture, not as intense granulation, but you still have a texture to it. And another one from Senelia, it's cobalt violet deep hue. So this one is a hue. It does have the PV16. It has a little bit of the PR122. It's slightly reddish in tone, in a hue, but very similar to the permanent mauve, which is kind of interesting because the red violet from Senelia and the permanent mauve, they have PV16 exclusively, and you can see the difference in hue and in texture. And I feel like the permanent mauve and cobalt violet deep hue, it's closer in hue, although the Winsor & Newton is slightly desaturated, but definitely you can tell even with the camera the incredible granulation of this pigment. And I have here the usual comparisons. I'm gonna look for the value range that can be achieved, and then I'll look at some of the properties like I did with the Purpurite Genuine, the movement, lift, their ability to layer, if I can get any gradients in water, and then opacity. So I prepared those little squares here. I'm gonna fast forward you to this process, and then we're gonna look at some examples that I painted with these colors. And here's my attempt of playing with the value scale for these colors. I still struggle with the lighter values. I feel like I go too fast to a darker shade. Well, this color could be watered down even more, but here are the colors. It's harder to get a really dark value because layering, it's hard with these granulating colors. And although I don't think Senelia mentions if their colors are granulating on their tube, they just have light fast, transparent, and opaque, the pigment information, the series, and yeah, they don't mention anything about granulation. And then the TO, transparent, opaque, which on their website I think I found semi-opaque for both red violet and cobalt violet deep hue. On this particular paper, especially the red violet separates into this pinker background and a blue granulation, similar with the cobalt violet deep in this particular sketch, the swatch, the difference is really small. Maybe the cobalt violet deep slightly pinker because of that PR 122. Winsor & Newton says about their permanent mauve that it's a rich violet color, it's a granulating and semi-transparent, which I agree with that. Senelia about a red violet, they mentioned that it's a reddish violet, it can be very dark in mass tone. Yeah, you have to be almost concentrated, like straight from the tube. And he says it's great for shadows. And then I noticed some granulation separation and it's semi-opaque. We'll see on the next page when we'll do our transparency test. And the cobalt violet deep, they call it an inexpensive hue, which I believe it is a series 1. No, actually it's a series 2. I'm not sure how much one tube of Senelia color goes for. I bought their full set, which was on sale, and it's something I wanted. I don't know if it's the best investment, but here I am testing all these colors. It is a nice color. They recommend it. It would great for botanicals. I like more smoother, transparent colors for my botanical, but I guess in certain application this will not be a mistake, or it should get some interesting results. And here are my test swatches completed. Not much surprised here. We kind of figure it out for the granulating colors. The layers, they don't look very even. And also this cellulose paper is not helping that much with the smooth transition. Dispersion in water, I was surprised by the Senelia. I felt like these colors I was able to get a really nice gradient, and you can see some separation there. Very similar, I believe the red violet is a little bit bluer than this cobalt violet deep, but very similar colors. If you don't buy the big set, I won't even buy any of them, to be honest, but between the two of them, depending if you like blue or red, they behave pretty much the same way. Layering, they create even more granulation separation. I think I'm partial to the red violet. Well, first of all, it's a single pigment PV16, and also in a light wash it has a very soft, very pleasant blue pinkish color. But you can see here on this black line there's kind of like a white dot, so I'm not sure if it's filler or brightener. Just be careful when you mix this color, you can get some muddy mixes. Same situation with the cobalt violet deep, although not as pronounced. You might not be able to see it. And then for the permanent mauve, those pigment particles You can see that violet pigment on this blue marker line there. Dispersion, movement in water, very little. Just a tiny dot where my brush hit the water puddle. With the cobalt violet tip, I could see a faint hue of pink. I think that's very possible due to the PR 122. On let's do the lift test. Don't expect this paint to be very hard to lift, which is a good thing if you want to get back to the white of the paper, if you have areas you want to correct. Winsor & Newton permanent mauve, almost back to the white of the paper. Make sure I'm in frame with the cobalt violet hue. That PR 122, it's slightly staining depending how much is present in this mix. We might still be left with a trace of it, and I think that's the case. Almost white with a slight pinkish undertone, but not enough. And again, this paper, it's Canson Excel. I don't know how the sizing on it, or how do they treat this paper, if that affects liftability. But as you can see, quite easy to lift. I'm trying not to scrub too hard. I feel like I'm lifting the paper. Also with the paint, almost back to the white of the paper. Let me know which one is your favorite in the comments. But you see, depending what you look for and what are you gonna use a paint, its properties, the way it behaves, the way you can layer it, the value you can achieve with it, and of course the presence of fillers, brighteners. That would depend on when you mix with the color, with other colors. And now let's get to some painting. And these are the dried paintings. I went in and added some details with my pigment micron and a few watercolor pencils. But you can see I try not to use too many colors, not to overpower the main color we are testing. My favorite one, definitely the permanent mauve from Winsor & Newton. Just a few brush strokes. The color did all the job. It textures. I also mixed here in this little tree some cobalt blue deep from Winsor & Newton and a little bit of yellow, and Daniel Smith buff titanium. I like that mixed with purples, it softens them up a little bit. The second color, the cobalt violet deep hue, I prefer it more in these lighter values than in the darker one. I tried to use as concentrated color as I could. I could try and let it dry and layer some more just to get a little bit more depth, but I just added some trees there with my watercolor pencils. And the last one, the red violet deep, I said in the descriptions for this color that it's great for shadows. I like my shadows to be slightly darker. I mean, it's a cool violet. If you don't go for a very dark shadow, I think you would do. I tried to contrast it with this beautiful Daniel Smith, I believe it's Naples yellow. I also mixed this little bit of cobalt deep in the sky, and the best part about mixing this yellow with this green, you don't get any, with this blue you don't get any greens, and you get very nice soft, almost like a sunrise type of colors. I tried to deepen this violet, adding some blue. I probably should have used like complementary color, maybe a deep green. I tried to use some lines just to get back some edges to delimitate the buildings. It's not a totally missed painting. I like some effects. Again, you can see some separation here where it mixes with the Naples yellow. But this is what I was able to put together using these beautiful pigments. Let me know if you use any of this color and what do you paint with them, and if you prefer granulating colors or more even staining colors. There's another thing I want to share with you. Since the cobalt violet deep Cenelia mentioned it is great for florals, I tried to do this anemone, and I don't know if I would say it's that great for florals. Of course, this is less quality paper. You can see in mass tone a lot of texture there that I would not necessarily attribute to a petal of the flower. For sure, the most granulating of the two, Winsor & Newton, although not true to the petals, I think it came out like a nice effect. And then the soft red violet, I actually liked it in this very light wash. I think you could use that for a floral with no problem. And on top here, it's a kind of a preview of upcoming colors. I have the Rose of Ultramarine, Queen Violet, and Queen Magenta. I mistakenly confused this for the Queen, the Permanent Mauve. So I just took that time to swatch the next set of colors that you're gonna see featured on this channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. See you in the next video.